Welcome back to Talking Europe and welcome to Corsica, perhaps the best loved of France's holiday islands, well known for its many beaches like this one in the Bay of Ajaccio. But did you know that more than half of the island is covered in forests? Picturesque they may be, but also increasingly dangerous too. Last year, more than 600 forest fires burned up an area of land close to the same size as Paris. It's a similar picture around the Mediterranean as climate change heats up Europe's southern edges. We're also going to be putting Corsica's forests under a financial microscope. The EU's anti-fraud office recently opening probes into alleged misuse of funding intended to support forest agriculture and other industry. Well, come and take a walk in the woods with us as we look at these and other issues shaping this island's landscape. Well, we've plunged right into the Corsican forest now, here to meet an expert in the matter, Daniel Lucioni. Nice to meet you from the Regional Centre for Private Foresters. First of all, can you just paint us a picture? What kind of forest do you have here in Corsica?
The Corsican forest is mostly deciduous, with some evergreens, mostly maritime pines. What's special about this forest is that it's very extensive, covering more than half of our land area, more than 500,000 hectares in all. And of that, private forests, which I represent, make up 80% of the total.
There certainly is a lot of forest here, but it seems relatively few people actually make a living from it.
It's mainly because Corsica tends to import the products it needs, and the prices are very competitive. So there's no way that local businesses could compete.
Corsican foresters, much like all other European foresters, do receive European subsidies, but you're not convinced that they're very effective. Why not?
The way that European funding works is different in forests from in farming. In farming, the idea is to help production. In forestry, it's more about environmental activities. That was a choice made by Brussels and the member states.
Well, let's talk forest fires. We know that they are a natural phenomenon, but firemen tell us that 8 in 10 of them are started by humans. How damaging are they?
When there is a fire in the kind of forest we have in Corsica, the damage on the ground is considerable, particularly for biodiversity and animals. Now that we have climate change in the picture too, in Corsica or anywhere, I think that we're no longer in prevention mode, but fighting mode. And in the fight, it would be our interest to have a pan-European force. We've seen fires in Sardinia, Portugal, Spain, France, Greece. These fires are strong and they're vast. I think that bringing together European countries' firefighting forces could make us more effective than we currently are. Last year in Corsica, we didn't have enough firefighting planes, and we can be most effective if we act quickly. Once the fire has grown, we're much less well placed to combat it.
Well, thank you very much for your expertise, Daniel Lucioni. And we all know that prevention is better than cure. When it comes to forest fires, that can even come in a 4-legged variety, as Johan Baudin has been finding out.
Summer has arrived in Corsica, and with it the fire season. Jean-Philippe Santucci is in charge of clearing brush for private landowners. His daily patrol around Ajaccio shows the reasons why the fire risk is so high.
This is a very wooded area, very green. The forest, the scrub and the houses are all very close together.
For 10 years, Jean-Philippe has taught landowners about their legal obligations when it comes to fire prevention. Josette Casanova has seen multiple wildfires ravage this area in recent years.
The forestry code is strict. The rules are clear. Trees over 2 meters in height need to be pruned. Here you can see that's very much respected. It's all been cut and trimmed.
We know what's needed. We've been fighting for years for the brush clearance to be done. It's necessary for us and for our neighbours.
But the problem lies outside of Josette's control. The Casanova property is next to this overgrown land, which has been abandoned for years, a clear fire risk.
The owner is a Mr. Luciani. He was born at the start of the 20th century, so it's likely that he's passed away. There's no one for us to speak with about the place now.
Local laws mean land is inherited by many individual heirs, but it can't be split into smaller plots. That leads to a lack of clarity over ownership and leaves much of the land in disrepair. It's thought a third of the island's private land is affected. Farmers are another key actor in fire prevention. Denis Damiani works with them to reduce the risks of fire.
This zone opposite us caught fire on the 2nd of August last year. In all, 70 hectares went up in flames.
A major challenge for Denis is changing local practices. For years, Corsican farmers have used fire to clear scrubland to make way for grazing for their livestock. Marcel Wheatcroft is a shepherd. He himself has started more than his share of fires in the past.
He didn't mention that he's also started a few fires by accident. Sometimes there can be accidents.
Yeah, that's the way life is. Accidents can happen.
A €10,000 grant from the EU has helped Marcel change. Now, as well as his flock, he keeps the vegetation under control using more modern agricultural machinery.
What's good about these measures is that it helps to reduce the risk of fire, and it produces forage stock for the animals, so everyone benefits.
Further down the valley, Jean-Charles Mattei's farm offers another solution. He receives subsidies from the EU to clear part of his scrubland, reducing potential fuel for the wildfires.
It does mean there's a lot of kindling to deal with.
Keeping the undergrowth under control also provides shelter from the sun for his flock and a more diverse diet.
This measure of opening up and preserving the environment means not only does the land produce more grass, and so it's able to benefit from the CAP, but it also naturally increases the quantity of trees and grass.
It's more natural than this prairie, which isn't native to this area, and which is harder to maintain because of the changing climate.
Corsica's fight against fire is a key local priority for the Common Agricultural Policy. The EU is funding 200 Corsican farmers a total of €10 million to reduce the risk of fire.
You join us now in Ajaccio. I'm here to meet Gilles Simeoni, who's president of Corsica's Executive Council. Thanks for receiving us. Hi there.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Welcome
to meet you.
Corsica.
Thank you. Well, first question, we've been talking about forest fires, a big problem here. We've heard that prevention methods are not necessarily working. Is it time to change tack politically?
Maybe not change tack, but we need to adapt, improve. We've had to deal with ever worse fires, not just in summer anymore, but in winter too, thanks to climate change. So we have to find creative solutions in prevention and in combating fires.
President Macron has proposed having a Mediterranean task force to deal with forest fires, among other things. Are you in favour of that?
Yes, of course.
It's something we've been asking for a long time. We want an inter-Mediterranean force, and we're actually proposing for it to be based in Corsica. We're well positioned geographically to get to fires quickly, whether in Sardinia, Tuscany, France, Spain or Portugal.
Now, in terms of Europe in all of this, we know that Europe's anti-fraud office, OLAF, is currently investigating several cases where they say that EU funding has been misattributed. Here in Corsica, we've heard that it's being put down to anomalies. What's the situation?
I think we have to say very clearly that pretty much all Corsicans, particularly farmers, make an honest living from their work. If there are errors or abuses on the fringes, of course, those have to be punished. The most important thing is to have clear and simple rules that also take into account the specifics that come with being an island.
I understand that you personally are interested in creating a sort of alliance with other islands in the European Union, for example, Cyprus, Malta. Of course, you all have being an island in common, but surely very different interests otherwise.
Not really. I think it's very important that the islands, and particularly the ones in the Mediterranean, try to speak with one voice as much as possible. With things like transport, taxes, sustainable tourism, water management, we have identical problems, and that's why we want to work together to reach solutions.
We know that President Macron is talking about relaunching Europe as of the 2019 European elections. Do you see an opportunity there for Corsica?
We hope so. You know, we're in favour of a Europe that's fair, united, which listens to its peoples and citizens. And with us being just a small Mediterranean island, we need to play a full part in the European Union, whether in politics, the economy, society or culture.
Well, thanks very much for meeting with us, Gilles Simeoni.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And just returning to the forests theme, did you know that France has a forest area bigger than the size of England? Big it may be, but underexploited, as Anaïs Guerrat explains.
These aren't just ordinary ramblers, they're some of the 3.5 million private forest owners in France that own 3/4 of the nation's forests. The average size of each plot has steadily shrunk down to just 3 hectares. Many aren't run with profitability in mind.
We only use around 2/3 of the natural growth. Of course, trees grow naturally. The work of a forest owner is just to plant trees that can reach a good price or that are adapted to the land.
For many family-owned forests, turning the wood into money is not a priority.
Marie, Gauthier, Pierre.
Pascal is the 3rd generation of forest owner in her family. She wants to pass the tradition on to her children. They've come to this training course for people who own parts of the Oise forest, an hour and a half north of Paris.
We need the basics about forest management and the right terms to use.
To be able to take over in a few years, not right away, as late as possible.
Everyone brings something professionally. We can't live off this, so each of us has to have a separate job. That's why French forests aren't always well managed.
Many small forest owners are sentimental about their trees and can't abide cutting them down. But replanting and regeneration is a key part of the forest cycle. And it's also a legal requirement for people who own more than 25 hectares.
So I have to follow this simple management plan.
Forest management, replanting, commercial exploitation, the kind of issues in the air at Euroforest, a leading international trade show in eastern France that brings together all the actors in the sector.
See, this Douglas fir is around 45 to 50 centimeters in diameter. This is what sawmills are looking for today because they have the machinery that works with trees this size.
The key challenge, matching supply in a long production cycle with the demands of a changing market.
For us, it can take 3 or 4 generations to grow a tree, so what we're growing today might not fit what sawmills want tomorrow. Take, for example, cherry trees. In 1985, we were told to plant cherry trees everywhere, as there weren't enough of them, and now we're selling it as firewood, because consumers don't want it, so we can't sell it.
The number of small-scale sawmills in France has dwindled to around 1,000. Their local know-how means they can act as a vital bridge between forest and buyer.
When I hear that the forest is underutilized, you have to remember that in this region we have areas that are difficult to cultivate. And sometimes we can tell when the product isn't worth working with.
This sawmill's new machinery was in part paid for by the European Union. But another challenge does come from abroad, where the big Nordic forests command more competitive prices. Using local wood helps guarantee a wider variety of species in French forests, an attractive bonus for this carpenter.
We are different from other companies that prefer working with wood from the north to bring the wood in from miles away. We have material here we can use, and it's a better quality. The base of these beams is oak.
This hall is being built using high-quality wood from the nearby Morvan forest. Because it's sustainable, the project has been backed by the local authorities and the EU. Locally sourced wood, thanks to lower transport costs and its carbon footprint, is better all round for the planet.
Well, we've brought you to this rather forested region of Corsica in front of the Esposada mountain. We're here to meet former MEP François Alfonsi. Bonjour. Nice to meet you. We keep hearing people talk about the fact that Corsica's forests are underexploited commercially. Obviously, there are concerns about the economy and boosting employment, but for the forests themselves, is it necessarily a bad thing?
Well, a forest that's not exploited is a forest that's abandoned. And in an environment that's somewhat hostile to forestry thanks to climate change, an abandoned forest faces an even greater danger from fires that could destroy it. There needs to be at least a minimal human presence to keep the space protected and looked after, to get the most out of it in terms of benefiting the local economy.
Looking at Corsica's place in Europe, we've spoken to the regional president, Mr. Simeoni. He wants to create a sort of alliance with other European islands. Is that necessarily a good thing for Corsica?
A population of 300,000 people in a mainland region faces totally different problems from a population of 300,000 people in an island region. So we have to come together because we have to make ourselves heard. Right now, only a minority of the European Parliament's members are islanders, and the rest don't understand the reality of our island issues.
You yourself are a former MEP. At the moment, though, there are no Corsican members of the European Parliament. How then to make Corsica's voice heard at that European level?
Having a designated member of the European Parliament is important, and we're asking for this. The German-speaking minority in Belgium has their own designated MEP, and that's for a community of just 100,000 people. In the same way, we think that each community of this kind in Europe should have at least one MEP.
Well, thanks very much for giving us your thoughts, François Alfonsi.
Au revoir et merci.
Thank you. Well, it's time for us to say goodbye to Corsica and our programme on Europe's forests. It is from here in this floral glade buzzing with insect and animal life that we say goodbye to you as well. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you soon on France 24.